and welcome to the SmackDown Preview Podcast. I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture, joined by the Dadley Boyz of WhatCulture, Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick, here to look ahead to tonight's episode of SmackDown on Fox. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts where we review Raw, SmackDown, the Wednesday Night War between AEW and NXT, pay-per-views, we have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a roundup of the week, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. But as I said, joined by Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick to look ahead to tonight's episode of SmackDown. And could this be the best SmackDown?
Nah.
No. Having said that, we are just over a week away from Survivor Series, and we noticed a glaring omission in the usual brand warfare build towards Survivor Series, and that is an invasion not from NXT, but from the red brand onto the blue brand. Could that happen tonight?
I love the Freudian slip of a red bland.
Red bland, blue bland.
I guess so. Because it's so weird. Even more, we've covered this in depth. Inherently, these sort of things are impossible to take seriously. But even within that own context, this is impossible to take seriously because we've got several triple threat matches, 5s on 5s on 5s, and ones on ones on ones.
Most brilliantly stupid match they have ever devised.
It's ridiculous. But there's, I'm trying really hard here, right? 5 on 5 on 5. We'll just take the men's match as an example.
Uh-huh.
There's more conflict at this point, right? I get the NXT thing. They've done that mostly really well, I think. There is more conflict within the respective Raw and SmackDown teams than there is between Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah.
This is insane. And for my sanity, must be addressed tonight with an intra-main roster invasion. Otherwise, you're taking something that never makes sense and you're making it make less sense. Give me an intra-main roster invasion. And I think I know the man who's going to do it.
Go on.
I think Seth Rollins is going to burn it SmackDown.
Oh, God.
Tell me now.
It's ruined my weekend before it even happens.
He's good, and I've ruined it for him.
Yeah,
He's good, and I've ruined it for him. Tell me now, Mark Hamflett, with a poker face.
With a tear in my eye.
With a poker face that isn't something Seth Rollins would say.
It's absolutely something he would say. It's something he would tweet first. So he'd spoil his own patter. He'd get booed on Twitter for it. He'd get booed in the crowd for it. This is very frustrating. I think, as much as how daft it's going to look, I can't even picture the 5 on 5 on 5 match. You know,
No.
an episode
Where they're going to stand?
You know, like cooking shows, like food shows, like Come Down With Me, where there's a conspicuous space at the end of the table for the cameraman, and they're just going to have a hard camera here, and then team there, team there, team there. The framing's going to be beautiful. It's like, what about the fourth side? There is no fourth side. 3 teams. It's so stupid that they could have had 5 big heels versus the NXT or the babyface brand. Fundamentally, aren't they? You know, people like this brand still. So you could have had 5 heels from either brand. So I do think it needs, and I've got to say, it does have to probably be a babyface as well. Not Seth Rollins, somebody that actually gets cheered, but somebody from Raw, say, for example, like a Ricochet that is still popular, has to come in and give the fans that have attended SmackDown, those SmackDown loyalists that, bleed blue, something to get excited about, because otherwise I'm not seeing any hostilities between red and blue this year, none at all. And even normally when
Red and blue.
Even normally they make them up because of the T-shirts they're wearing, but they've not really gone to that trouble yet. SmackDown has yet to even build, and I know we'll get to this, has yet to even build its own title match, let alone why it might be pissed off with Monday Night Raw.
It's fascinating to see how on earth they're going to get around to this.
It's one word for it.
I do think that centering it around someone like a Ricochet attacking someone like a King Corbin would probably be one of the best ways to do it. But I can
Good guys and bad guys. Imagine that. Imagine if Survivor Series had babyfaces and heels.
But yeah, what sort of a reaction do you think Seth Rollins would get as an invader on SmackDown tonight?
I mean, I think those SmackDown loyalists would hate that guy from Raw. He would just get booed. I mean, God bless him. Sometimes I feel sorry for Seth Rollins, sometimes I don't. I think possibly he is suffering from some mental health issues, which I think a lot of us are. I certainly have in the recent past. It's something we can all empathise with, but for Christ's sake, doesn't he half just invite this sort of criticism with his pious kind of deluded, sycophantic posturing?
You've never tweeted best writer on the planet, period, and you are. So, Seth Rollins is more guilty than you are of any of that sort of Twitter nonsense.
You've just killed me in the comment section there. You dick. And I think I know what you were doing.
No, that's genuine earnest support.
No, thank you.
No, it's Seth. We talked about this before. There are ways, if they're going to be so lazy with their creative when it comes to Survivor Series, you can make it fun for the fans. It wouldn't be that hard at a SmackDown taping to put a free blue T-shirt on everyone's seat. Football teams do that, like scarves and things like that. And then if a Raw wrestler attacks, all decked out in red, at least they look like they're on enemy territory. It is television. You can use the magic of television. You can make the audience part of the cast, but they don't really do that. So if Seth shows up, it's probably a worst case scenario because it's like, oh, great, a mixed reaction for a feud that hasn't yet been built. You'll get some cheers, but it won't be enough to actually determine what actually matters come Survivor Series.
But the Fiend uses red lighting, so that would confuse everyone.
I was going to start using blue lighting, isn't he?
That's it, yeah.
Oh my God! Realistically, they need to get the I don't know the schedule. There's likely to be a Raw. Is there going to be a Raw house show? Even if there is, I'm not sure there is. There might be, there might not. Jesus Christ.
And they've helicoptered guys over.
That's the thing. They can helicopter guys over. They can use some of the mid-card acts that they can just say, oh God, so check to change the screw you guys, I guess. But they need to do something for me, just for my sanity. I'm not going to watch this SmackDown if the Raw guys come over, right, and think, all right, good, fill the plot hole there. It's still a gigantic gaping plot hole, but do something, please, to just reassure my intelligence. Don't insult it any more than you already have.
Like you say, they flew Bailey over on an avion from France to NXT this week,
Jericho.
so that wouldn't stop him. He's not the only one who knows French around here. Right, let's talk about the Universal Championship picture. Widely being reported that Daniel Bryan will face The Fiend at Survivor Series. Daniel Bryan, of course, attacked last week on SmackDown, set to appear on Miz TV tonight. That's quite intriguing, isn't it? Obviously, with the history that Miz and Bryan have and the fact that they need to urgently set up this championship match.
We talked about the Fiend's opponents, and like most things he is in his life, Daniel Bryan is a best-case scenario. The Fiend needs somebody strong to go over, but the match needs to be good. And you don't need to overcomplicate this, I don't think. I didn't mind the attack last week. It was fairly pedestrian WWE storytelling, but I would imagine The Miz is taking one this week. I like it being Miz TV because despite the fact they bodged the feud, the tension can now just exist forever. We're in quite a weird... This is a middle Daniel Bryan, isn't it? This is not the Yes Movement Daniel Bryan from 2 years ago, nor is it the new Daniel Bryan from earlier this year. So that's kind of the perfect one to mesh with this rather pleasant, affable version of The Miz. They'll get a little bit tense, but then The Fiend just puts his finger down his throat and we get the official... I just want to see a graphic. I want the certainty that The Fiend's going to have something decent at this pay-per-view.
Are we going to have any sort of correction when it comes to that Universal Championship? Lots of people speculating when he was going to appear on WWE Backstage last week, we were going to see a new version of the title. And in reality, I think it just had his side plates on it, basically.
Like
It's funny the
everybody
Fiend
else.
getting side plates,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like, waiting backstage, somebody to finish engraving.
Are they going to change that?
There's like poker face and mask just not budging at all. Just waiting for it to just like, meet his exact specifications.
Yowie, wowie, how long's this going to take?
For God's sake.
So, yeah, how do you see this going tonight?
Oh, the Miz TV segment.
Miz TV and this championship belt issue, because it's red on a blue brand when you're very close to having brand warfare stuff going down.
Right, okay. As for Miz TV, I am beyond sick of like chat show segments. I think they're kind of a useless way to drive narrative and drama. It's just my opinion. However, if you're going to do it, and the Miz has just re-signed a contract for 4 years, so we're going to see it until at least 2023 or 2024,
And he's going to
depending on the month.
buzz, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Then, yeah, Daniel Bryan gets anything over, and surely there'll be some nice little neat acknowledgement of their shared rich history. I would like it cathartically if they went, didn't they botch our feud last year? Maybe we should revisit that on our own terms next year. What do you think of that? Maybe a handshake agreement? I don't know. I'm just waffling here. Yeah, I'd like to see some cute acknowledgement, but realistically, what you're going to get is lights out, Fiend attacks Daniel Bryan, and you're going to set up a match. You know what would be interesting and perhaps necessary, given that this match clearly is happening because they've foreshadowed it and they've apparently dropped plans to have Daniel Bryan go over Shinsuke Nakamura because these things happen week to week. Is that Daniel Bryan should maybe be the first to see the attack coming. That gets him over as a babyface. It creates something completely different to what we've seen so far. And it looks like he's got the better of The Fiend, which no one's had yet. The Fiend beats him at Survivor Series, but you get an interesting new wrinkle to the way these attacks go because they're getting very one-sided, diminished, repetitive. It would just be nice to get a babyface doing something that a babyface should do and use his smarts and ability.
What about if we're expecting The Fiend, and in reality we get Bray Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse introducing a new puppet called Birdie, and then it's just all in relation to Brian's kid, and it's this little Tweety bird that then gets smashed with a hammer or something, whatever happens.
Or gets
You know
eaten
what the-
by the...
Yeah.
You know what's interesting, actually, away from all of the cynicism I've just said, your favourite corporate Twitter account, WWE on Fox.
Whenever you say your favourite, I was like, where's he going with this? So, like, I'm cycling through Kevin Nash, Shinsuke Nakamura's blue gear. I never know which one you're going to go to.
So, socialist Michael Hamflett's favourite Let's Make Corporations Look Good Twitter account is WWE on Fox. They tweeted a graphic.
Like two heel billionaires, they cancel each other out. I don't know how this works.
Shut up, man. I'm talking.
Talking here.
They tweeted a match graphic. Not a match graphic, a graphic of Bray Wyatt and his Mr. Rogers get up with the Fiend next to him with the words, and it was quite sort of intriguing because they just left them laying. Bray Wyatt or the Fiend. I don't know what that meant, but could we possibly see the very first in-person appearance from Bray Wyatt, completely sending up the Mr. Rogers aspect of his persona, coming out to the Firefly Funhouse theme in his sweater in the middle of Miz TV, waving at the crowd, coming to the ring,
I like that.
pulling up a chair, and they are possibly the two best performers to sell this, looking like terrified.
Hi, Daniel. You know, like wide-eyed.
Yeah,
thrilled to-
wide-eyed, full of like, gee, golly whiz, glee, and they're
He
looking
asks
like
him
they're...
a question, he just goes, yes! Like, he's just thrilled to even just be in the ring with him, just with the belt slung over his shoulder.
That, to me, could be like a really unsettling way of just really drawing this character out further because, for Christ's sake, it's getting a bit Hammer horror for me.
Yeah, we talked about this when we spoke about potential opponents for the Fiend going forward after he won the title. There is only one person I think you would trust to rehabilitate such a character.
You get a monster pop if he came out in that get-up as well.
And as Booker T reminded us, it was just walls and pictures, so that can travel anywhere. It's not like it's not in his mind anymore.
Right, let's move on and talk a little bit about some more matches taking place on SmackDown tonight. It's Nikki Cross versus Bayley. And if Nikki Cross wins, she joins the SmackDown Women's Survivor Series team, which currently stands at Sasha Banks, Carmella, Dana Brooke, and Lacey Evans. How do they book this? Because obviously with Bayley set for this triple threat match on Sunday, and Nikki needing to be a part of this team, possibly a return of Shayna Baszler, maybe Becky Lynch getting involved in here somewhere, do you see?
One or two or both, realistically. This is one of the few things that I've really quite enjoyed about the Survivor Series build, apart from that like brilliant episode of SmackDown, because they had that wonderful, sinister sit-down conversation between Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler that I thought was executed wonderfully. They made a point to mention Bayley and essentially framed her as the third wheel. On NXT last night, what I thought was a wonderful detail is that Shayna Baszler literally turned her back on any imminent threat. She lost sight of Bayley despite promising not to do that. Bayley cracked her in the back with a chair. This surely warrants some kind of retaliation on Shayna Baszler's part. It's predictable, but it's good predictable. It's in character. All that stuff's got over really quite well. So however they do it, in terms of whether it's just Bayley or it's Becky Lynch as well, that's clearly the only way to go.
Despite how difficult he is to figure out behind the scenes, I think Vince McMahon is often quite easy to read through his product. And I get the feeling he's fallen in love with Shayna Baszler. I think he's had one or two looks at her and already he's like, right, yeah, she's coming up as soon as we're done with the Survivor Series mess. I'm going to have her for the main roster. And I think that's why we've seen so much of her. And she's been so impactful every time. So I could certainly see her having something to do with this. And with Sidgwick, I love the booking of this. And increasingly, to me, it seems like this should be the Survivor Series main event. I saw last night it's featured on the poster now, which looks great. All the other angles are kind of unfinished, with the exception of Brock and Ray, but that doesn't feel like one of Brock's main event title matches this year. That's got a sort of distinctly mid-card flavour to it. So I think
Potential show opener, perhaps?
possibly because like Brock in that position just generates this massive heat, doesn't he? You know, but I feel like this could be the main event. And just as long as if they're going to put Nikki Cross in through this mechanism, it's just as long as they try and protect Bayley a little bit, because NXT was so helpful in elevating her to the exact level she needs to be in time for this match. They're foolish enough to think that she can get away with taking a defeat here, and she probably can't.
Roll up.
Yeah, she just can't be made to look stupid, and that's that's what I think they struggle with when they're trying to do this finish. And as well, was it really necessary to, if this is the way you want to put Nikki Cross on the team? I don't recall Dana Brooke having to beat the women's champion to get on the Survivor Series team. Why has Nikki Cross got this additional hurdle? They've made the work for themselves here. The card will be different by the time it gets to about 6 o'clock.
The mere fact that this contrivance is in place, as you've just pointed out with a really good point, is that it's inevitable that this will not end clean. It's a WWE TV match, so it's almost inevitable that it's not going to end clean.
What do you make of the men's Survivor Series team on the SmackDown side of things? It's kind of obvious, obviously. Roman Reigns, Ali, etc. Shorty G involved in there. Baron Corbin. What do you make? It's kind of straightforward, isn't it?
I'll never react in good faith to the stage name Shorty G.
No.
I mean, you've somehow done it. You've deadpanned it to pop me or to infuriate me. I don't know how you can do it with a straight face. Shorty G. You know what's ridiculous? It's like he's gonna be the best part of this match.
Well,
And
he's the best part of every match, isn't he? So-
I know, like even the NXT team, has that been announced yet? They haven't announced it.
It's Adam Cole, and I think what they're going to do is force him to team with his 4 War Games opponents. He's got no undisputed era members, so it strikes me that because they've been involved in the invasion, like Ciampa and Keith Lee and Co, I think it could be those guys like Adam Cole being forced to lead these people that tried to batter him the night before.
That's a good idea.
That's my speculation. That's not.
They could execute it well, but regardless, yeah, Shorty G is like, if you could take him seriously, which you can't, his goddamn name. I want to swear so much to put this over. His name is Shorty G, right? He's up there with the best of the NXT roster, in my opinion. He's fantastic. So yeah, I'm happy with the team just because he's in it, even in his little person basketball gear with a ruler.
With a ruler on
the
his
G.
on the G on his shirt.
On
yeah.
Shorty
Shorty G,
G's-
he just rules.
on
And
Shorty
he's
G's
short.
name.
How soon are they going to get him in there with Braun Strowman in that Survivor Series match, by the way? To have like I think you said before, a nose to nipple moment.
Yeah, well, they did it with Rey Mysterio and the Great Khali when Rey was the world champion, just because they had the opportunity. On Shorty G, I've noticed they've given Mustafa Ali his first name back, which, nice for him. On a podcast last week, I've got to give credit to Post Wrestling, Wei Ting or John Pollock. One of them said, one of the reasons they thought they had to do that was because with Ali G and Shorty G, then one of them said Sacha Baron Corbin. And it was just like too many people are going to start making these jokes. That I think, honestly, that's a response. Just give Mustafa back. People start calling him Mustafa again. These names are so bad. Like, remember when Dolph Ziggler was called Dolph Ziggler and everybody went, well, he's never going to make main event WrestleMania ever because that's Dolph Ziggler.
He didn't.
We do get used to most things, but he's still never main evented WrestleMania.
No.
Shorty G, we will get used to it, and he's still going to go nowhere with it.
Well, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We don't know for certain that Ali, or Mustafa Ali, as I should call him now, and Shorty G are going to be on that Survivor Series team because they are facing Rudolph tonight for their spot on that team.
Jesus Christ! Like, I don't want to be Sidgwick because he has the ownership of WWE cynicism, but this is garbage, isn't it? This is total crap. Like Ali and Shorty G on Team Hogan, like. Unexpectedly, that storyline was quite entertaining, and the match, as we all sort of predicted, was great because WWE are really good at this. They're just fire baby faces that are amazing at comebacks, and 2 of the only guys in this ridiculous SmackDown mid-card to get over in spite of the obstacles put in front of them. Yeah, we'll give it to probably the most boring doubles act on the entire roster. Let's put them in the Survivor Series match. Let's have like Roman Reigns, broad shoulders, carry 2 more lugs. Yeah, that's rubbish booking. That's dreadful booking. Like, Rudolph weren't even entertaining when they were thrown together to win the tag titles and got like matching gear. Like, nothing about them is intriguing at this point compared to the little basketball guy. Like, that's,
It's probably just going to be a straightforward victory, I assume.
I hope so.
It better be.
He's going.
Because I'm going. Like, I want the Survivor Series teams to be good.
Right, final thing to mention ahead of SmackDown tonight is a rematch for those SmackDown tag team titles that Revival lost to the New Day last week. No rematches in WWE, of course. But it is going to be the New Day versus the Revival tonight for those tag team titles. I assume it's going to be a retention for the New Day. So rather than talk about that, is this worked in any way to rehabilitate Kofi Kingston?
No. And again, like I'm conflicted on this. I don't necessarily want WWE to be terrible because it fits into a narrative I've been weaving for about 3.5 years in my capacity as a content producer for WhatCulture.com. But I kind of enjoy this because I think a lot of people, like, I just need everyone to realise, just not working, lads. Come and support the good guys, AEW. I'm joking, but realistically, this is yet another reason. I am, man. This is yet another reason why I personally find it very difficult to invest in these things because a couple of weeks back, we all know that Kofi Kingston stood less of a threat to Brock Lesnar than Dio Madden did. They both got put away at the exact same time frame.
Madden's like really tall.
Yeah,
So, like,
more or less. Then I think it was the week after he completely no-sold it and that was pointed out. I think they've realised, hang on, the optics of that look terrible. Let's have him crush a pancake. Or maybe Kofi himself said, I'm going to try and just put some kind of interior life in this like ridiculous storyline. So he crushed a pancake in his hand. Like about 5k upvotes on Squared Circle on Reddit going, oh, don't be so cynical. They're telling a long-term storyline. He's going to have a long-term redemption where he goes over all these obstacles. And he's going to get there in the end. And it happens in like 3 weeks. And there's no dramatic weight or no gravity to it. So, yeah, in answer to your question, I think they, in their minds, unfortunately, have already thought they've rehabilitated Kofi Kingston.
There is a middle ground between Sidgwick's don't be so cynical, guys, and me, Fat Tommy Dreamer in ECW, with waiting for a kendo stick saying, thank you, sir, can I have another? Like, it's the hope that kills you, because I enjoyed that pancake crushing thing. But even at the time, my suspicion was, like, and I was really willing to buy into that being part of a bigger storyline, but my suspicion was, as is often the case in WWE, this is just a wrestler trying to do something for themselves.
Yeah.
Like, they've seen what gets over, and it's normally not what's given to them.
Which I respect way more.
Yeah, completely, yeah. If that was something that he'd then driven and continued to do that, and yet the story wasn't feeding it, but he was continuing to build it, so much so that they had to acknowledge it, and you know when they do acknowledge it, because that's when they ruin it, because it's the author's hand. I would have been all in favour of it, but it has gradually dissolved. To be honest, it was them winning the tag team titles where I gave up on it, because you don't tell the story of a man gradually unravelling because of these heartbreaking defeats by having him win a match and win a title. So I've given up on that now. On to the next one. On to the next one I have blind faith in.
And you think the New Day retain tonight?
New Day? Yeah, why not? Because I like the New Day in that match less than the Revival. So I've given up on that tag team match being as good as it could have been. I think it's gone from a 10 to an 8. And that's not bad. That tag team match is still going to be great. But the Revival are easy to leave off a card like this, unfortunately for them.
Real shame that. Right, let us know your thoughts ahead
They've
of...
done it on purpose, sorry. I'm interrupting your big
No, that's
closing
fine.
spiel, but they've kind of engineered the scenario of, you're going to be in this match, guys. Actually, no, you're not, because you're completely bantering us off on social media. So this is why you're going to lose the titles. Oh, do you want a rematch? Do you want the little fleeting notion that you're going to get your little dream match with the Viking Raiders now?
It's the same match. Yes, it is.
They'll probably drag it out another week. So it's like, well, if you win, you could be working on Sunday. Nope. Right.
Automatic rematch, baby.
Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below ahead of SmackDown tonight. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there. Follow all three of us. You can follow Michael Sidgwick at...
Sidgwick.
Follow Michael Hamflett at...
Michael Hamflett, I've unfollowed the Fox account.
You can follow me at Adam Wilborn. As I said, follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. This has been the SmackDown preview. My thanks to the Dadley Boyz. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.